With the introduction of the LG G3, LG really put themselves on the map as a smartphone manufacturer that produces high-quality devices that attracted a lot of attention in the public with both critics and consumers. Hey guys, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a look back at the LG G Flex, the original G Flex, the bendable phone, and to see if it's still a good deal in today's standards. We think that as a whole, LG devices tend to be pretty innovative. However, they haven't, for some reason, received too much public attention, and they've been overshadowed by companies like Samsung, HTC, and Apple, at least in the past. But we see devices like the LG G Flex, which is actually the world's first flexible phone with a flexible screen that's also entirely bendable. And they've also crafted the world's first transparent phones. America's first projector phone was also manufactured by LG, the LG Expo, the LG chocolate phones, and so LG certainly knows how to innovate and create devices that we've pretty much never seen before, and yet for some reason other companies tend to be a bit more popular, which is a bit ironic. However, the LG G Flex is certainly something that takes innovation. Released about a year ago, it was a culmination of all the technologies that LG could possibly cram into this one flagship device. From a Snapdragon 800 processor, which is a quad-core chipset clocked at 2.28 GHz, which is lightning fast, and even by today's standards, it runs basically any application without a hitch, and it also offers 2 GB of RAM and 32 GB of internal storage. So in terms of memory and processor, there wasn't anything really to say about this phone. Otherwise, other unique aspects of the G Flex included the fact that the back was self-healing, or basically the plastic underneath included tiny micro capsules with liquid inside, and whenever you slashed on the device with some light scratches, you basically ruptured and broke apart these tiny micro capsules, and because there's going to be like a scratch or a dent, the liquid is going to come out and it's going to fill up the space and then harden over time, so it looks like the device doesn't have any scratches. During our testing, we found that for light scratches, the self-healing back actually worked very well, and it worked better under warmer environments. So if you do have a scratch, you rub it and get a bit more friction on it, and the back will actually heal within a few minutes, which is very, very impressive. And so despite being made out of plastic, it actually is fairly durable, as you may expect from a self-healing back. That said, deeper scratches and scrubs will actually not heal like this one scratch that we have here. But otherwise, for a device we've been using for about a year now, there actually are no other scratches on the back at all, which is very, very impressive. As a flexible phone, the device also comes with a fair amount of other features, like the fact that it's extremely durable. You can drop it, you can bend it, and it should technically flex, as the name would suggest. So you can drop it, and it would have a high degree of shock absorbency, both in the plastic, the battery, the screen, and all the materials that are being used. So despite not being made out of aluminum, it still is well constructed, and certainly can handle more than your day-to-day usage will bring you. The back of the device features an IR blaster, which allows you to use the G Flex as a TV remote control that worked very, very well in our testing. We'll get to that in a moment. It also features a 13.0 autofocus enabled camera, which produces some pretty good shots. There isn't any autofocus, there is autofocus, but there isn't image stabilization, but still images were very, very crisp and overall very impressive, both in daylight and also in darker environments. There's also a whole number of different settings that LG has put on to the device. The camera here can also record at 1080p HD resolution. As you can see here, like with most other modern LG Android phones, the volume rocker has been placed onto the back. On this particular phone, it's actually a smart choice because at 6 inches, the screen is almost unwieldy, and this is because it is a phablet device. As a result, having the volume rocker on the back makes it easier for your hands to naturally press on the buttons and to access the volume controls when you're talking or texting, as opposed to having to find the buttons on the sides, where your phones don't have that much control if you're using it one-handed. However, one disappointing facet of this particular feature was that the bump was kind of misplaced. It's very close to the camera, so users can sometimes not differentiate between the camera and the button, resulting in some greasy lens that you have to clean over a period of time. The power on and off switch on the back here also dubs as an indicator light, which will illuminate when you have a new message, and overall, the button itself is very, very tactile and responsive and easy to press. The left-hand edge houses the micro SIM card for the T-Mobile variant that we have here. The bottom features a micro USB for charging and syncing, along with the 3.5mm. It offers a curve that's not too dramatic, but still is a curve that is notable. It's going to affect day-to-day usage, which we'll discuss in a moment. And the top features a microphone for noise cancellation. And that's about it. You'll notice that the phone itself actually does not have a removable back cover, so the battery inside stays put, and it's also a special battery that also flexes when the phone flexes. There also is a speaker on the back that produces only so-so average audio quality. We wish that these speakers were located on the front, and they were a bit weak in performance, to be quite honest, but then again, it still is pretty respectable as far as the phone is considered. Now, taking a look at the front of the device, now one of the main points that critics and consumers critiqued about this phone at the time of its release was the resolution of the screen. It's only 720p, and that's to cut the cost of the manufacturing process. As one of the first flexible phones in the world, manufacturing that flexible AMOLED screen did take a bit more cost and time to produce, and so upping the game to 1080p would have been more expensive, and so they needed to develop the technology a bit further and to subsidize the pricing. And taking a look on the front here, there is another LED indicator, a IR indicator, and also there's the earpiece, which is comfortable, produces pretty good volume, and the bottom just features the LG logo. All the buttons and controls are directly on screen, and the edges and the bezels on the phone are pretty respectable. It overall gives a very strong impression in terms of the quality of the phone, and we are impressed with what we're seeing as a whole from the design of the hardware. Like with other LG flagship phones of 2014 and 2015, we have double tap to turn on, so we simply tap twice on anywhere on the screen to easily turn the device on. And the G Flex features unique ability to have a live kind of home screen directly from the lock screen. We simply tilt the phone upwards or downwards to kind of look at the different view. We can look at the sky, then we can look at the water, and this kind of plays with the element of the flexible screen, which is curved, so it gives you kind of this virtual reality-like experience. We can then tap and to unlock and go into the UI. Otherwise, in the UI, we do have LG's customization, LG's S-Class customization Optimus on top of the traditional Android experience. Currently, the G Flex One is running on KitKat or Android 4.4. However, an update to Lollipop 5.0 has been promised and is slated in early 2015, probably in February or in March. Taking a look at the overall performance of the device is still pretty snappy. The first thing I'm going to discuss is going to be that screen. Now, some people again say that 720p is not high definition enough, but during day-to-day usage, I really didn't find this to be too big of an issue. You could look really, really close and nitpick and compare it with a high-density phone, perhaps like an iPhone 5, and say, oh, the pixels here are a bit worse, but generally, as long as you're not holding the phone this close to your eye, you're not going to really notice the difference in resolution. And the color saturation and vibrancy on the screen were very, very impressive. You'll notice that the blacks are very deep, and the same can be said about the color saturation and the ability to still see the screen under brighter environments. So as a whole, the screen, in terms of color reproduction and basic performance in terms of playing back videos and browsing the web isn't really a problem at all. And it certainly isn't the reason why you should immediately not purchase this phone. Now, the reason why this phone would be a bit more controversial is going to be that size. At 6 inches, the phone should be gigantic, and it is. A typical 6-inch phone would be nearly about the same size as half of your face, which is a bit ridiculous. A few years ago, you would have scorned and even laughed at the idea of such a giant phone. But with the curved edges on the device, it makes the phone seem a bit smaller than it really is, and we certainly found that to be true during testing. Whereas a giant 6-inch phone would be difficult to reach with your fingers onto the top and the bottom, with a 6-inch display that's curved, it actually makes a bit more sense. If we're sliding through different menus and settings, by going upwards, the curve makes it easier for your fingers to reach the top and the bottom of the screen just because it curves upwards. And so it's actually easier to press on the top icons rather than going flat and your fingers have to actually reach further. And that would be more difficult on a large screen. So this is a feature that the G Flex actually has that is beneficial and unique. Other features of the G Flex are pretty standard for Android. There's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0 on board, there's NFC support, but there isn't QI charging on board, which is a bit of an interesting lack or omission on this particular phone. Otherwise, performance is very snappy. There are a few applications that LG has put on here, but this is the T-Mobile variant that we have here. So you can see that's been customized to include some applications like T-Mobile My Account, T-Mobile ID, but there's not too much bloatware going on. Most of these applications I installed by myself. What's interesting about the G Flex is that the first time I logged in with my password and account, it automatically started to pull all the applications I had on my previous Android phones into this device without really even asking me first. And I guess this is an interesting feature. It's a positive one if you do want all your games onto one product and all your music and content, but at the same time, it meant that it took up a bit more space, and instead of having the time for you to populate your phone by yourself, if you do have an Android phone in the past and you log in, it's automatically going to start to install all the previous applications that you have on your past phones. So it also has an interesting backup service in that department. Some other features here is Quick Memo, which is the same feature we've seen from LG for some time now. Essentially, it has this memo recording functionality that provides a screenshot on top of any screen that you use, and you can use the pen to draw, doodle, and annotate. And it's great for note-taking, for presentations, and you can also erase it, save it, and do whatever you want with it. It's not going to affect most people during day-to-day usage, but it's a nice feature to have, perhaps for having a snappy processor and an innovative design. Another area where the LG G Flex excels is in the battery life. With such a large phone, LG did a very smart move and actually put in a 3,600 milliamp hour battery, which lasts about 2 days before you have to recharge it. With light usage, it's going to easily last you about a week before you have to recharge it. And that's very, very impressive battery life performance, especially in such a giant phone with such a raging fast processor. And this is one of the reasons why you want to consider it. With a 720p screen, there is theoretically less power that needs to be provided to power the display. And so, as a result, you do get better battery life. LG G Flex isn't perfect. But then again, for its innovative concept and the fact that it now only retails for about $200 without a contract, I would say that it's still a very, very formidable smartphone that people should consider if they are looking for a phablet device. It's fast, it's very strong in performance, and the curve actually helped to enhance the usability in terms of the endurance, the ability for the phone to resist some shock, and the fact that it resists scratches on the back, in addition to the fact that it takes great images, has very, very good call quality, and the battery life is excellent. So if you are looking for a smartphone that, delivers in terms of performance and has a slightly larger screen, the G Flex is still a good option, especially now since the price is a lot lower. You can check out our full original written review on this phone on our website. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the G Flex Revisited review here in 2015. If you have a Snapdragon 805 processor underneath the hood, web browsing is obviously going to be a seamless experience. It's fast, it's lucid, it's responsive, and we can press on the browser here. You can see all the animations and everything works crystal smooth, and even if you're quite a few meters away from the router, it's still going to pick up and perform quite well. Another area where the device excels at, just because the phone is a lot larger, is the built-in keyboard. You can see how because the phone is a lot larger, the keyboard is extremely easy to type on just because of its size, and the also horizontal orientation works equally as well. Just because it has a natural curve, it's easier to reach kind of the center and the sides, and it makes the web browsing experience a dream to work on. So if we wanted to tap on New York Times, let's try typing on the more complex version, such as the desktop version on here. You can see how we can tap on that, and the device will handle those pages as well. Overall, we're using Wi-Fi right now, and the distance is a bit far from our router, but with the processor underneath the hood, you'll see that the device loads up any images, any graphics, any videos without any issues, and that includes all flash elements as well. So again, as far as web browsing is concerned, you do have an extremely good experience just because you have a super large screen that's bright, it's vibrant, a fast processor that loads pages almost immediately, and all the complex pages such as New York Times, which is a benchmark for one of the most complex pages currently available, loads without any issues, that you know that this phone is going to be a formidable device to browse the web with. So if you love browsing the web, this is one of the best devices to do that with. We're currently multitasking with multiple applications open, and it doesn't really even affect the performance. So the notebook application here allows you to take quick notes, to doodle, and to draw. So it's a great way for you to annotate and to create more notes and applications. The built-in camera here, 13 megapixels, is pretty impressive as far as performance. It does a great job of focusing. You have to have a bit more of a steady hand, but afterwards it takes the shots extremely quickly, and you have a whole host of different navigational options and settings, including the flash, including the modes for the different selections, panorama, time catch shot, night modes, portrait modes, and also dual cameras, which takes advantage of both the front-facing camera and the back. So it takes an image of the front and the back at the same time. There's also a panorama mode and a virtual panorama, which allows you to take images and then tilt the phone screen to see virtual panorama image that we captured. I can press on that, and again I can now tilt on the device just to see the part of the image that I want to see, and you can see how it works really well. And I can tilt it all the way around and kind of go left and right to see where the image is. I can tilt it up and down to see the sky better. I can zoom in by zooming in even more. So overall, it's a very nice experience. It's very interesting as far as being able to see all the elements of your picture like in a movie theater, and it works extremely well. As you can see here, the image quality itself is quite good, especially in brighter environments. You'll notice that the detail is fully basically LG's answer to something like Siri on the iPhone or Samsung Galaxy S's Smart Voice. And it's basically a digital voice assistant that you can ask for different weather, for you to call someone, for it to text someone, and it's pretty accurate, although it's not as smart as Siri for the iPhone, for example. The Q voice here tends to have a bit more errors, and it isn't as accurate. For example, we can say something like, best Android smartphone. And instead of telling me that perhaps LG is the best smartphone, it's actually going to start searching for it online. So it's not the best in terms of the general performance and usability. I can say something like, what's the weather today? And from our basic and from our day-to-day phrases, it tends to be,
mobile network location settings need to be on. Please try again after changing your settings.
So it tends to be a bit more robotic, even though we do already have Wi-Fi turned on. So you can see how it's not as accurate as we would have hoped it to be. With that being said, it still is a fun little gadget to play around with, a fun little app. If you have the time to mess around, it's a nice one to have. There's also Polaris Office built in for access for editing tools and for editing those documents, and also for PowerPoints, Excels, and also Word documents on the go. There's also a download manager on board, and also you have the whole suite of Google applications, including Gmail, Google Play Store, the Google Drive, Photos, Hangouts, Games, Playstand, Books, and the list just goes on and on. As far as ebook reading goes, it works pretty well, although not as ideal as something as the e-ink screen. Quick Translator is also pretty interesting. You basically use it to use the camera to search up a word, and then it searches it and translates it automatically to another language. Although it works, we found that sometimes it's not as accurate as we would have hoped. It's a bit more tedious, and it takes a bit more time, and you also need to have a really bright lighting condition in order for the device to recognize your words. So for example, game, I can try and search this by going onto the game part. I'm going to tap, and it takes a few seconds. Sometimes it's a bit more finicky, but again, it should try and find that this is a word, board, and now you can see that it's found that it's word, and it says that it's for chess, and in Spanish, this is the Spanish translation. So it does work, but it's a bit more finicky, but also is a pretty interesting customized app that we didn't really see before on other smartphones in the past. Otherwise, you do have a pretty clean install, not too much other stuff going on, aside from some specialty mobile applications and everything else you can basically install and customize in the App Store. You do have this kind of live weather application, which is pretty fun to play around with. And in general, the, again, day-to-day performance is incredibly snappy, and the most important attribute of any device that you have. It works extremely well. The caller reception is really strong for the signal strength. 4G data speeds were pretty impressive and fast, and we never really dropped or lost any reception even when we were in indoors and in different houses, and also were in different buildings. Callers said that the microphone picked up our sound exceedingly well, and also due to the noise cancellation, it eliminates any background noise as well. So a very good device in terms of call quality. Really, that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as features that are crammed onto this thing. The universal TV remote works exceptionally well, and you can turn that on and off on the slider bar on the top. There's also something called the Q Slide, which allows you to open up different sliding applications on the top there for even faster access. There's ability for you to turn on and off the quick remote here, and that allows you to basically access and turn the channels on your device. We tested it with a Samsung television, and it worked flawlessly. You can change the channels, change the volume and the source, which is all quite impressive. And if we long press on the back key, there's also the ability to open up two applications at the same time. So for example, YouTube on the top, and I can also open up Chrome on the bottom. So now we have the ability to browse the web and also watch videos at the same time, which is pretty incredible. And due to the fast processor, there isn't any issues or stuttering that occurs when doing those tasks. So it also works for multitasking and opening up two different windows on the 6-inch screen, which is a great implementation. And the list of features really just goes on and on and on. There's different things like Live Square, Gallery, Memo Pad, Lookout, Mobile Hotspot for turning your phone into a wireless Wi-Fi router. There's voice commands for a twist if you don't like Q voice. There's a video editor on board that's built in. There's a task manager, soft card, again, a more detailed task manager on here. There's like 1,000 ways to do the tasks that you want. There's 1,000 ways to access the same feature, which I think is going to be good because it's easy to use, and no matter what way you choose, you do get to the feature that you want to use, which is good. There's also features on here like on-screen phone, so you can transfer what's on the screen of your phone to a television or into a monitor. That works really well using a program. There's Dropbox that's built in, and really, again, the list just goes on and on and on. You're always going to be expecting and experiencing new things as you play around with the phone, which already on its own is really fast, lucid, and responsive.